Is staying the course going to result in a negative outcome for my business financially, my clients financially? Is this going to negatively impact my brand or my identity? We want people to be obsessed with our product and it be the only product that they want to use in the niche that we are operating, which for us is cheer. If you are good at finding the problems, finding the shortcomings in things, then you just do simply that, and then you invert your thinking. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Cheer Biz Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Cotton, and today we are going to be talking about when is it time to make the decision and how to pivot in your gym, and how would I recommend going about it. Now, before we get into the episode, please make sure you have liked our Facebook groups. That is Cheer Gym Owners on Facebook and All-Star Cheer Coaches and Owners, as well as checked out nextgenowners.com to learn more about how you can join the Academy. Now, this was something that actually one of my Academy members messaged me about just today. She said, hey, I would love for you to do an episode about when it's time to pivot on something and how it is you go deciding what it is you're going to do when you pivot. I asked a few more clarifying questions. I got a little bit more information and I was like, yes, this is absolutely an episode that we should be doing. And it's not something that I've never talked about before, but I think it's always good to revisit these kind of things. So we're going to be getting into that and the ways that I would pivot, how I would pivot, and when it is time to pivot. Now, before we get into the episode, I really want to thank you all for listening. The summertime, I know everyone is traveling, and I have to apologize. I haven't been releasing a couple episodes because I have been at dream camps and I thought I had enough pre-recorded and I did not. And I did not have time to get over to the studio that they were able to give me on the campus I am on and record these episodes. So I owe you an apology. And I'm going to be recording some really amazing episodes. I've got some fantastic people here that I'm going to be interviewing on the podcast. And you're going to have some great content from the people I work with throughout the summer with Dream Camps. So I look forward to getting those episodes to you. Make sure you're keeping an eye on the podcast. A lot of these people are amazing cheerleaders with lots of experience coming up into college cheer. These are NCAA national champions, grand national champions, world champions, Team USA members, some really, really phenomenal people who I know are going to have a lot of great knowledge to share with you. Now, we're talking about when it's time to pivot. And realistically, where I am right now is a huge pivot. I am at camp, but I am not at camp in the place that I have always been. I've been doing camp at the United States Basketball Academy for 9 years. And this year we pivoted. And this was a really hard decision to make because there was definitely some assessment of, is it time to pivot? Is it time to change? Is it time to do something different than I set my goal as? One of my goals was to eventually buy the place we did camp at. One of my goals was to grow it to where we could be there all summer. It was a part of my soul. This year, I had to make the very tough decision to pivot away from that. And so I'm going to walk you through kind of how I made that decision without just focusing solely on camp and help you relate that to how you might use it in your business when you are making these decisions, especially when you're determining if you should pivot on something mid-season. I know that's always one of the big challenges. And the reason mid-season pivots are such a difficulty is we oftentimes, if you're like me, you want to tell your families, we are doing this. And then you want to deliver on your word. It's important for you to make sure that what you say you do, you end up doing for your client. Our word is our bond. Now, oftentimes we do fall short. And I've even done it just this last week. I made some errors in terms of things I had on my website to things I delivered, and people called me out for it. And it stung. But you know what? They were right. They were right to say, hey, you said we were going to get this. And I know we didn't talk about it at all. And I know that, this is just me now reminding you of this thing that you put on your website back in October, but you put it on the website. And you know what? They're totally right. And so that was an error in my systems where I missed something. So in terms of determining mid-season when it is time to pivot, number one, the first thing I always want to look at is staying the course going to result in a negative outcome for my business financially, my clients financially, or Emotionally, I think just, is it going to have a negative impact on my clients in some way? And last but not least, is this going to negatively impact my brand or my identity? And really, if any one of those three things are a factor, it is going to negatively impact the business financially, or it is going to negatively impact my clients or my staff. They should really be a consideration as well in a significant way. Or it's going to cause a negative brand reputation for my company, which would then go back to the financial impact. Then I probably want to seriously consider that it is time to make a change. So some things that might be this is we launch a program and we don't get the registration that we need to have to support the program. And because we have paid attention to everything Dan has talked about and we've picked up his book when it's out and we've learned how to price accordingly, we know that we aren't set up to be financially successful in this class. Ergo, it is time to make a change. We either need to increase the prices, we need to decrease the overhead cost, or we need to eliminate the offering altogether. Now, the first two are what I always prefer to do, as opposed to eliminate the offering altogether, although there are certainly times where you have to make that decision. You have to say, you know what? It's just time to cut bait. It's time to move on. We cannot support this plan any longer. Now, from there, I'm looking at, is this going to be a negative impact to my client? If I'm looking at my clients, what the last thing I want to do is cost them money that they are not expecting to pay, especially if that money is something that is not delivering on extreme value, and especially if that is money that I am making them pay. Now, if they choose to buy additional things from another vendor, they choose to go get the nicest, coolest Rebel backpack, or they choose to pay for a bunch of professional photography outside the gym, those are the choices that they make. And it's not something that I'm going to really spend a lot of time being concerned about. But on the flip side, if this is something that I am requiring of them, like I say, we're going to go to NCAA Nationals, UCAA Nationals, Jam Fest in Indy, Mardi Gras, all these other events, and every single one of them is a flyaway event, well, then now I've made that decision, and that has a potential significant and oftentimes negative impact on my clients because now they're having to pay a bunch of extra money. And that could even be pivoting mid-season where you say, oh, shoot, a competition got canceled or a plan we had didn't work out. And when you make that pivot, you need to look at, is this going to be a negative consequence on my families? The last one would be that negative brand affiliation, where this is a really hard one, where it may not impact us financially in the short term, meaning the product is going to launch, it's going to run fine, and you're going to pay your bills. But the delivery of said product is going to be substandard to what you believe you should be putting out. And in that circumstance, you probably want to make some significant adjustments because the last thing we want to be doing is putting out a substandard product. Your clients deserve to have an amazing experience. And that is what is going to create lots of brand loyalty over the years. We want people to be obsessed with our product and it be the only product that they want to use in the niche that we are operating, which for us is cheer. Those are the three things I look at and I say, okay, is it time to make a change because of these things? The last one I would say, the fourth one, and this isn't really a mid-season one, it's just a general assessment, is staying the course getting me closer to my goal or further from my goal? I always want to be assessing that. What is my goal, and is this course getting me closer to it or further away from it? And that actually was a huge factor in my decision to make a change with camp. I had to make the decision because of the way the other facility was being managed. I had to say, you know what? I don't think this is going to be good for my clients. I think it's going to create negative brand reputation. And I just don't believe that this location is getting me close to my goals. And a new location is going to give me much more opportunity and the ability to achieve those goals at a higher rate of speed. So from there, we need to assess, how do we pivot? What is it that we are going to do to make our plan to pivot? The first thing we're going to do is we're going to write down all of the problems. I'm a huge inverse thinking guy. I need to pivot because X, Y, and Z. I have not charged enough for this program. We don't have enough registration. The coaches are too expensive. The hours in the gym are too many. there could be literally a laundry list of different reasons why you're in the position where you need to pivot, a variety of different problems. It is actually much easier to sit down and riddle off all the problems to something than it is to riddle off all the solutions. But the cool thing is by rattling off the problems and just going through them rapid fire and finding all those problems, you actually are on the flip side figuring out the solutions, because all you have to do is look at each problem and say, how do I reverse engineer this problem? And that will give me my solution. I didn't charge enough. I need to increase prices. My staff are too highly paid. I need to put on a junior coach that isn't paid as much, or maybe I need to decrease a staff member. They're practicing too many hours in the gym. I need to modify that in some way, shape, or form to get more hours available in the gym that aren't taken up by this program that we shouldn't be having. So we use that model, we think of all the negatives, and then we just flip it upside down and say, these are the solutions. And that will get us to where we need to go from a pivoting perspective of what it is I need to change. Now, for me, when I looked at this, I'll walk you through my camp thoughts. It's the most relevant example for me at the time. I look at things and I go, okay, I want to have a shorter summer. I want to be able to fit more athletes in a shorter period of time. And the current location only allows for so many kids. Well, my problem is time frame and number of bodies we can fit through. Solution, larger location with more beds will allow me to have a decreased amount of time that I'm at camp with a higher output. Another thing we were looking at is reliability and consistency of communication. Transitioning to a university that has a full-time staff dedicated to events solves that problem. So those are just two examples of the things that I went through as I was making these decisions. So it seems sometimes complicated to people, but it really is very easy. If you are good at finding the problems, finding the shortcomings in things, then you just do simply that, and then you invert your thinking. Now, how do you announce these kind of pivots, these kind of changes to your clients? It's so funny that I'm recording this episode right now because I've actually had two questions about this. One was, can you do an episode on when and how to pivot and those kind of things? The other was an owner reaching out and saying, how do you announce moving to a new building mid-season? What do you say? And so how do you pivot? Well, in this situation, when you're doing something mid-season and you're going back essentially on something that you've said you would do, my number one approach is this is sales. I'm going to spend the time and the energy to convince people that this is something really, really exciting. And hopefully it is really, really exciting. So, for instance, with camp, I promoted it and I said, we have a big announcement coming. Guess what it is? And we kind of teased that we had a big announcement. We started to release information with dates first. We said, hey, we have our camp dates coming out. Then we released the new location. And when we released the new location, we put out all the positives. We are so excited to be partnering with Lewis and Clark College to host our summer 2024 Oregon experience. These are all the great things. It's a bigger gym. There's going to be more equipment. They stay in dorms. We have some climate control. Better food, better experience, better. And that is going to be how I would highly suggest you be prepared to pivot in any one of these situations, especially mid-season when you're going back on something you already said. You want to build the plan and talk people up to better. So we're moving into a new facility. Yes, it's farther away. It's bigger. It has more uninterrupted space. There's no poles. There's a better lobby. Parents can stay and watch, etc. Same thing with we're modifying a program. Maybe you're combining two teams. Hey, we are so excited. We've looked at the team, we've looked at their choreography, and we've determined that to make both teams the most successful, we're going to split them into two different teams. We are so pumped. This is what's going to happen. These are all of the answers to your questions. Bada boom, bada bing, you move forward. So we want to make sure that we are selling people. We're getting people excited about a new big announcement or more information. And then we move forward from there by giving very clear communication with this is what we're doing. This is what to expect next. This is why it is so fantastic. So as you look at your season, you're going to have times where you're going to need to make these decisions. You're going to need to go, okay, should we keep moving forward? Should we make a change? Should we pivot? I know I've said pivot like 800 times You're probably thinking of Ross on the stairs with the sofa yelling, pivot, pivot, pivot. I know I certainly am. But we want to make sure that we have a plan as we head into the season. We know what we're going to do. And in this circumstance, if you think that there's going to be people who are really, really TO'd about it, then you probably should be hopping on the phone with that person. We in the cheer industry are oftentimes very reactive. We know we feel emotional about it. We transpose our emotions onto other people and we imprint those on them, assuming they're going to react similarly to the way we are reacting. And oftentimes that is just not the case. But if there's someone you think is going to be really, really unhappy, then I would highly recommend you reach out to that person and have a conversation early on rather than waiting for things to get bad and blow up. Just simply talk to them early and often and explain the situation. And if they have questions, answer them. And then when they get the information that's coming, they feel like they already had an inside scoop and they're a little bit more prepared mentally for what it is that you are telling them. That can make a huge difference in any business that is needing to make some sort of adjustment in the way things work in their program. So as we leave the episode, what I'd like you to do is I would like you to try to use your crystal ball, stare into the future and say, what are some things that we might see as potential problems? This is similar to what you would do in a SWOT assessment or a strategic priorities, but we want to be looking at where are things that could come up in the future, or what are things that we already know are going to be a problem in the future. If you have not sat down and spent time working with someone who can guide you, talking about how you get through the month of March, April, May, and June, how you get through those months without going in the negative while still being profitable and not being stressed out about your business staying afloat, then you need to get with a next gen coach. It can be absolutely life-changing, and you need to start thinking about those things, because every time you go into those situations and are reactive, you're going to be much less likely to be successful than if you go in with a solid plan that you're just making slight adjustments to. We want to make sure that we are anticipating the things that are going to happen. We're building our plan and we are executing on that plan. That way we aren't surprised, we aren't reactive, and we can keep the emotion out of it. We can make decisions in a stoic standpoint from the perspective of this is what's best for my program, this is what's best for me, this is what's best for my staff and my clients. All right, everyone, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Like I said before, I have missed you. Thank you for listening to the end. And with that, we'll catch you on the next episode.